Welcome to Living For You, the YouTube channel. We're back with another video. I am your favorite cousin's cousin, your favorite uncle's uncle, your best friend's best friend. It's me, Dr. Larry, and like I said, I'm here with another video here on the Living For You YouTube channel. And hopefully you've been following, hopefully you've been subscribing, hopefully you've been showing up regularly. I love it because I love my subscribers, my family. You guys are family. So I'd like to say thank you for keeping up and staying and sticking and being here for us, with us, so that we can do this thing called life and growth together. Because that's the whole purpose of this channel. This channel's focus is to help us to live better, more meaningful, more present lives. And you guys, if you do not know me, I'm Dr. Larry. If you're new here, Dr. Larry Smith. I'm a certified life and spiritual coach. I'm also a minister / educator / historian. I have a lot of titles. Of course, I feel like you're obligated to be many things. You can't just be one thing in order to be successful. And so therefore, I'm many things. I have much of experience in a lot of fields. I, as a life coach, have a business called Live For You Coaching, hence the name of the channel, Living For You. And in the particular coaching that I do, I specialize in African American males between the ages of 18 and 40, helping them to get over a trauma that they've dealt with in their lives, or maybe several traumas, trying to help them center themselves and get back focused on living a present, more productive, more happy, more willful, and life driven by their own personal choices and decisions, one at peace. But I can help anybody. You know, life coaching is a broad spectrum that once you learn the skills, the listening and the facilitating skills, you're able to help pretty much anybody find the present life. So you want to know more about me, go to www.livingforyoucoaching.com. There's my bio, there's my information. There's also some resources if you need resources for your own personal usage. Free resources as well as paid resources. It's at actually a very affordable, reasonable price for the level of skill, competency, and ability that I give to you and that I help. But like I said, it's not about the money. It's about helping people to live present lives. And so that's why every week we come right here and we do what we need to do to get to know each other, and we build and we grow and we communicate and we dialogue. We reach out on each other on social media. You can reach out to me at Dr. Larry Smith on Instagram or on Facebook. You can send me an email at drlarry@liveforyoucoaching.com. I connect, I reconnect, and I have a great community of people building and growing who are trying to be their best selves, as I am walking this path of life, trying to be my best self as well. So if you want to know more, or if you want to become part of the family, just go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Invite friends to subscribe so you have something and someone to talk about this stuff with, to move beyond the videos and into the real world. And you also can like, comment, and share the videos all over your platforms. Because like I said, we want this to be a movement in which everybody's living their best, more present, more healthy life according to their own rules, right? It's so easy to get caught up in living a life that is not a life of presence, that's against the rules, where you're just mundanely living every day over and over and over again. So the purpose of this channel is to help us to be present. So come back every week, like, comment, subscribe, join the family. Your family anyway, so you might as well join the family officially and show up with us. Hit the notification bell so you know that when I release videos. For those of you who do come back regularly, you know I release videos now 3 times a week, Monday, Friday, but then we added an additional series that we premiered last week on June 17th called Living for Black History. Being a historian who specialized in the history really of a lot of people and a lot of groups and things, I am also an African American history professor by trade. I actually teach African American history and have for quite a few years. And what I came to the conclusion was that not a lot of people understood African American history or even knew it, had a full understanding of what the whole storyline is, because some things that happen seem for some people to be random, when it really is a continuum of things that have been occurring since 1619, when black folks first got into this place we call the Americas, right? And so I go through the history from the beginning back in Africa. If you watched last week's episode, you saw that we talked about Africa and early Africa, pre-colonial, whether it was Islamic or Christian Africa, and we going to move forward into the modern times over a series of episodes. So now we're in season 1, and we're dealing with Africa. We come back Wednesday, we do part 2 in early Africa, and then moving on from there. So if you enjoy history and if you want to know more, and I encourage everybody, not just African Americans, not just black people, everybody can learn black history. You have that resource. Now you can go and watch the channels as often as you want to, share them, add comments to them, engage in the discussions about it. And let's learn about each other. You know, if it's new to you, let's learn and let's grow and let's be better. But on the main channel, what we're doing here is we are doing the life coaching. We are doing the enlightenment, the growth. And so that is actually what we're discussing today. Given everything that has been going on, I feel it is very important for us to engage ourselves in activities that are going to better us and not keep us stagnant. Because what happens, like, for example, right now we're in the moment with the George Floyd situation and with the corona and all of these other things that we got going on. We're in a state of where we are unsettling. And sometimes we can get stuck there and stay there, and that's no good for anybody to get stuck in a place where we are now. What we do is we're supposed to take these experiences, these traumas, these things, and we learn from them and we grow and we become better. And so what I do is every year I read one book. Well, I read multiple books. There's one book I know for a fact that is on my reading list every year. And it's Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. It's a very good book. It's a very powerful book written by Eckhart Tolle, and I read it at least once a year. I find myself this year, because of all that's been going on my second reading of this book. But it's a great book to read. It's a great energy-filled book. It's a great book to get us into a place of seeing ourselves differently, you know, moving towards that higher consciousness where we need to be. And I think everybody should gather something from this. And so what I'm doing now, what I'm going to do on Mondays for a little while through my reading of this book, is I'm going to share chapter by chapter. Sometimes the chapters will be divided into 2 parts where we're going to discuss the book together. We're going to have a conversation about the book together and what it means together. Because I really want you to get the book, The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, and read it. And read it as we go along, so you can contribute to the conversation, so that we can grow together. And then, of course, Friday I do my normal Friday stuff. But I wanted to begin this series because I think the power of now, this moment we're in right now, needs some clarity. And we need to be able to move beyond where we are and grow and continue to see what's happening so that we're able to move beyond it. And so, for those of you who do not know who Eckhart Tolle is, Eckhart Tolle is a very good read, really. And I'm an avid reader. I love to read. I read quite a bit. I see many books that I want to read, that I get to, and I get a chance. When I get a chance to read, I read. Because I feel like the one thing that you have that no one can ever take away is your mind. If you can keep your mind strong, if you can keep your mind good, as long as you fill it with stuff, you'll always have the resources to do what you need to do. Whether it's learning a new skill or a new trade or a new business idea that's going to make you money, or whether it's just self-development. So I read all kinds of books, self-development, about new business ideas, about interesting stories, of course, history. I read a lot of stuff that I figure I put in my mind just for strength. You know, it makes me feel good to just read and dive into a book sometimes. And sometimes it's an escape. And so when I fall into a good book like The Power of Now, I find it to be an escapism, kind of, and a positive escapism into something that I know is going to be beneficial for me in the long run. And so Eckhart Tolle is a spiritual teacher, and he's not more so on the religious side. He's more religious mystic, kind of a deeper sense of spirituality than just your traditional religious teachings. Those are useful too. I love a Joyce Myers, I love a Joel Osteen, I love a T.D. Jakes, I love a Juanita Bynum. I love those teachers too, but there are some writers that I feel are a little deeper in spiritual sense than those writers are, who just talks from a religious doctrinal perspective. And Eckhart Tolle is definitely on the top of that list for me. He actually came from Germany, and his life, he suffered from I guess you would say, traumas and diseases like depression and anxiety and other things like that. And because he was living in a post-World War II Germany that had been torn apart, that was trying to find its way, that was trying to grow and develop, and there were many social, economic, political issues going on. And he grew up with this anxious feeling about all of this. And so when he was, he actually at 29, he began to kind of dive in to try to find out the meaning of life, trying to find the answers. And at some point in all our lives, we go through that moment in which we're trying to find the answers and the meanings and the understandings, definitions of life. We all go through it. I went through it when I was like 22, 23, and then a resurgence of it from like 26 onward, where I grew into something to where I'm more comfortable now. Now I know where I am spiritually connected. Now I know where I am as far as how I feel on the inside and what I believe in my consciousness as it relates to life and spirituality in general. And so we all go through those types of things. And so at 29, he had a spiritual awakening. His was more supernatural. Mine was kind of supernatural. Now I'll get into that story one day when I decide to talk about my own spiritual awakening. But we all go through them at some point in life. And that changed his life. And from that point on, he had been on his path to helping others to not have to go through the depression and the anxiety and the pain that some of us, myself included, have to go through in order to get to spiritual enlightenment. There's an easier path if you can just recognize where you are and where you want to go. And so in 1997, he wrote his first book, and it's the book we're talking about, The Power of Now. And that book has been translated. He's been on Oprah. He's been in other places giving convention speeches. He's a coach. He does a lot of things because the book had a powerful impact, right? And so we'll discuss it because I want you guys to read it, or I want you guys to go hear it. You can listen to books while you drive. You can probably pull it up on YouTube and watch and listen to it while you're laying down, doing something else, thinking or something. You can find a way of getting in contact with this book because I do believe that if you read it thoroughly, it will change your life. So let's get into it. Let's talk about it. So we'll start this first conversation about chapter 1, and I'm going to go chapter by chapter. Like I said, sometimes I have to divide the chapters up because it's so rich. There's so much content that I think will be beneficial for us to dive a little bit deeper than just a shallow surface chapter by chapter reading will give. So the first chapter is actually entitled, You Are Not Your Mind. Right from the bat, you already know he is about to go into this discussion of where we spend most of our time, which is in our mind. If your mind was a destination, it would be a lot of people's favorite destination to be. Because what we do is we not only go there consciously sometimes, many times we go into our mind unconsciously. And what happens is the figments of our mind or of our imaginations, of our thoughts become reality. And you guys know that one of the things I say as a coach all the time right here on this channel is that your thoughts will create the experiences that you have. So it is important to understand and to at least dive into those thoughts. And this is exactly what he's pretty much talking about in chapter 1. He actually starts about the conversation about enlightenment, right? We all heard of it. Whether you're in a religious set of Buddhism and you've heard of enlightenment or nirvana, and things like Hinduism, or have you heard of salvation in Christianity and Islam? Many religions talk about the idea of finding this highest self, this enlightened self, this spiritually connected, spiritually self. And we tend to make it seem like it's something that is unattainable by most people. We think of certain enlightened people and we just kind of ignore that that other people have access to it. And the reality of it is we all do. Enlightenment is found within you, within me, within all people. We all have access to enlightenment. And the reality of it is, it's not an external venture. You do not go and try to pray 7 times a day. No problem with that. If you do that, that's fine. But that's not a requirement to find enlightenment. Enlightenment doesn't mean you fast for about 30 days to find enlightenment. That's a fine practice, and it's good to do it if you do it, and we praise it. But at the end of the day, it is not the way to find enlightenment. You don't have to go to church or be in a church or meditate or do any practices that you would deem to be spiritual ways of actions to get to enlightenment. The only action that you have to do is to go within, right? Go within, because enlightenment starts and finishes within. So people try to find all kinds of ways to find this stuff. And when you think of enlightenment, you think of your highest self, your best self, your most connected self, your happiest self, your joyous self, your most peaceful self. You can go down the positive list of things that would encompass enlightenment for many people. Well, many people try to find all kinds of alternatives outside of themselves to do it, whether it's to work about 20 hours a day, whether it's to exercise or take some kind of drug, or whether it's to do all kinds of things in order to find their sense of enlightenment. And many times they don't find it, and they begin to get addicted to the method of trying to get enlightenment. So, for example, getting addicted to work, getting addicted to drinking, getting addicted to drugs, or exercise, or eating, or something you're trying to find a sense of your enlightenment in becomes an addictive habit that might not necessarily be an addictive habit that is good for you. Even reading, trust me, can be done into the extreme. And so we look for joy, fulfillment, and other things outside of it, but the reality of it is true enlightenment is not something that you can pull from an external force. It is something that only internal discovery and internal search can actually find for you. Enlightenment is actually our natural state. It's the state you were born in. All babies are enlightened, right? Little baby Buddhists, right? Little baby Jesus, they all are in Christ. They all are enlightened. And that is your natural state. That is that state in which you have a oneness connected to being. And being can be anything. Being has many names. You guys use many names. I use many names, whether it's God, the universe, Allah, spirit, the all, everything. There are many names that you can use to refer to being. Being is just a way of saying it without putting a physical form on it. But there are many, many ways of expressing being, God, whatever. It doesn't matter. To me, the term, the name doesn't even really matter at all. But the problem is, the greatest lie that was ever told, the greatest illusion ever felt, is this illusion that we're not connected to it. This illusion that there is a separation between us and this thing we call being, or this thing we call God. That is one of the greatest illusions, lies, falsehoods ever told. Because we act throughout this separation, right? We act throughout this separation. You can just think of the story of the Garden of Eden and what happened between Eve and the serpent and Adam, right? You know, this idea that you will not know good and bad and all this, when really it was already there. It was already there. They didn't have to have the external stuff. But, you know, the story goes that they were convinced that the external stuff was what they were lacking. And that was going to bring them more connected to knowledge and to all-knowing and to well-being and to all these things. But the reality of it is that it never goes. You're always connected to that being. And so, while the word God is used for it, being, like I said, it just shows. These are insufficient terms, even being, but being attempts to try to reduce the infinite invisible, tries not to reduce the infinite invisible to a finite entity that can be taken away. And, you know, anybody call themselves gods. There's been people who've been referred to as God on earth. And so the idea of saying being is just a way of the book really just disconnecting, trying to add physical form to it, because it really doesn't have a physical form. Right? It's just all. It just exists in everything, everywhere, all times, forever, beginning and end. You got Alpha, Omega. You guys know what the Bible says as it relates to what we refer to sometimes as God. And so, like I said, the terms don't get hung up in. If you want to refer to this being as God, if you want to refer to it as a he or she, you can break away from that slowly. The more you get accustomed to just expressing it as just what it is, just this entity, this being, you work on that slowly, do you, until you get comfortable being able to do that. I'm comfortable saying God is everything. I'm comfortable saying God can be being, universe, power, all powerful, and I'm okay with that. I don't have a reservation about that. But what happens many times is we identify a separation between that. And what happens beyond that separation, according to the book and according to many scholars and religious teachers and mystics and spiritualists like myself, we begin to identify with our minds within this separate state, or the separate thought state, right? And that, to me, is the greatest obstacle that prevents us from getting and experiencing nirvana or enlightenment or salvation. It's this idea that we have this separate nature, separate from the being of all. That is only a powerful, good energy. We separate ourselves from it. And what happens is the noise within our mind, it prevents us from finding the inner stillness and listening to that inner voice. And what happens is we create, according to the book, a false mind-made self. And we begin to determine who we are through this false mind-made self. And you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Because in this situation, in this place here, there is this idea that you have these definitions, these judgments, these titles, these labels, these concepts, these words, these ideologies, these all kinds of things that you describe yourself and you describe others, and it really is just a way of describing your separation from being, from all. And it just puts you further and further and further away from remembering who you are and who you're and what you're connected to. And so the truth of the matter is, in this state of thinking, this thinker state, at least according to the book, that is a separate. That's separation. That's a separate state. Whereas enlightenment means one. Enlightenment means connected. Enlightenment means part of. Enlightenment means engulfed in and full of being, the one, the all, God, right? And that's the state we want to be perpetually in. But unfortunately, our mind, as thinker, separates us from that state, unfortunately. Right? And what happens is this inhibits a lot of our relationships. And the book, quote, states things that it inhibits our relationships with ourselves. I like to say our true selves. It inhibits our relationships with our fellow man and our fellow woman because we see a separation between them and us. We see a separation between ourselves and our true selves. We see a separation between us and nature. It's always us versus them. And then we see a separation on the most important between us and God. We put a wall, a partition in between us and everybody else and everything else. It's just a huge separation. That's a very lonely place to be. Now, this illusion of separateness is what he calls this. Eckhart Tolle calls this the illusion of separateness. You no longer feel as though you're one with anything. You're by yourself. And according to him, that is what people suffer from the most today. Look around. Look at the state that we're in right now, in this moment right now. Now, mind you, this book was written in 1997, so you're talking about 23 years ago or so. This book was written, and it was saying that then. Do you feel it now? It's almost like we've gone further than where we were in 97. Because I can remember a sense of connectedness back in the 90s. But now you don't always feel it as present as you did even 23, 25, 30, 100 years ago. And that's because we're now kind of in a state, and almost seen a stuck state of separateness. But we have to remember, it's here. It's the mind. It is the mind. And in order to be able to get beyond that state, you got to begin to do what Eckhart Tolle say is watch the thinker. Pay attention to the thinker and what the person is thinking. Because a connected mind sees beauty. A connected mind sees love. A connected mind sees creativity and joy and peace. A connected mind feels all of those energy because God energy, universe energy, being energy, all energy is perfect, right? It doesn't have the disruption of the disease of separation or of unease, dis-ease. Doesn't have that. And so you only will see what an enlightened mind see when you are connected and you recall that you're connected to that. In fact, the Buddha easily said, and the book mentions this too, is that enlightenment is the absence of suffering. Doesn't give anything else. It's the enlightenment is the absence of suffering. Think about what's in your life. Think about who in your life. Think about thoughts that you have that create suffering in your life. And how much more ease, instead of dis-ease, would your life have if you negate or you get rid of or you minimize much of those things? Yes. Powerful, right? Very, very powerful. So what happens is we are already, all of us have voices in our head, continual voices in our head that go on and on and on and on. How many times a day do you think about something? How many times a day do you have thoughts about something? How many times a day? But the point in trying to be able to observe and listen to the thinker and pay attention and watch the thinker is that you start paying attention to what you're thinking about. Because you're going to start to notice that there are certain things that you are playing in your head over and over and over and over again. And the more you play those things in your head over and over and over again, you begin to feel them at the deepest sense of yourself, and they begin to become your reality. And you begin to experience just what you've created in your mind that you've wrapped around. I call it the iPod in your mind, the playlist in your mind. It could be Spotify, it could be Pandora, it can be iHeartRadio, any of them. You got a whole list of songs that you play in your head quite regularly over and over and over again. Have you ever stopped, got still, and paid attention to what's on your playlist? Have you ever stopped, got still, and paid attention to how often you play that playlist? Have you ever stopped, got still, and paid attention and realized why those things are on your playlist? All of that. So Eckhart Tolle's advice, at least at the beginning of the chapter, is for us to pay attention and watch the thinker, and to observe the thinker, and to look at the thinker, and to observe without judgment, whether it's good or bad. Don't label it, because you're just going further into where you don't want to be when you start labeling your thoughts. Don't label it. No judgment. Just observe what is being repeated on your playlist, on your iPod or your iGod. I like to say iGod playlist. What are you thinking? Right? That's what we need to start getting into. So with this book, that is what we're going to dive in. This is, look, we're not even finished on chapter 1. We still got more to cover with chapter 1. So you already see that this is going to be a powerful series. It is going to be a series to get you to start to reimagine and rethink and reconnect back to being, back to all your true self, so that you can have the fullest, most greatest, most present, most positive, most loving, most joyful life experience that you can possibly have on this planet. But it takes work, it takes effort, it takes intention. And hopefully by the end of this series, you're going to start to be more intentional about it, and hopefully start to move things around. Because like I said, the place that we're in now is evidence that we've pretty much fallen asleep at the wheel of unconscious separateness. And it's time to wake up. And obviously, hopefully, this is what this is doing to move us in that place. But there have to be teachings. There have to be teachers like myself and like others who are slow, even if it's even a quiet voice right now, but giving voice to the move. Because we can't stay here. This is not a place to stay. This is a temporary place. And it reminds me of my own personal experience. And you guys know, I've already talked about this before, that watching and observing and looking on the internet and reading all the stuff that was going on in the news, I felt my own sense of self-change. I felt like I was getting negative. I felt like I was getting hampered, and that my thoughts were uncontrolled and in a place where I didn't like it. So I immediately began to say, I got to clean this up. And that's how you go. That's how you know when you're spiritually connected. That's how you know when your spirit is in a place where it needs to be. Because you know when you get to a place where you're disconnected and you got to clean it up. And I was like, I got to clean this up. I said, because this will affect my life. And I can't allow it to do that. So that's where we're going. Next time when we come here, next week, we're going to go deeper into chapter 1. So I recommend that you guys you can probably find it for free somewhere. You can maybe find it online for cheap, an ebook or any kind of book of The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, 1997, but I think it was a 20-year anniversary or something that was redone. I don't know. But The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle is the book that we're going through, that we're diving through, that we're trying to understand together. I'm reading it personally myself. So this is me sharing my reading list and me sharing what I'm reading, and we're diving into this together, because that's what we do here on this channel. That's what Living for You is about. Living for You is about deep awareness. Living for You is about a bigger consciousness. It's about getting better. It's about living a more present life. So remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Welcome to the family. If you're newly subscribing, go ahead and hit the button. It's okay. Go ahead and hit the button. You can follow me on social media at Dr. Larry Smith on Instagram and on Facebook. And you can leave comments. You can discuss things with me. We can create dialogue, and we can elevate our consciousness together so that we can move from this moment here to a more present moment. I love you, and you guys know what I say. I'll see you in the next video.